Welcome back to another episode of Grace Over Grit and Growth. This is a podcast where we celebrate women's journeys and we empower each other to thrive in our personal lives, careers, and businesses. We're two women who are passionate about connecting with and inspiring others in our community.
And hello, everyone. I am Monique Fisher.
And I'm Alita Anderson.
And today we have with us Dr. Alvenia Rhea Albright. She is the founder of Alvenia Rhea Albright and Associates LLC and of a non-for-profit entitled The Ray of Hope. So I want to start off. I just want to read a little bit. I know you don't like me reading all this bio and stuff, but yeah, I'm just gonna hit a few things, okay? So she is an international presenter and trainer. She's an adjunct professor, a leadership coach and consultant. In 2001, she launched her own consulting firm, Alvenia Rhea Albright and Associates LLC. She is a leadership strategist. She coaches. She also works with international businesses and helps them to strengthen their leadership and executive teams. Okay. She served as director for New Detroit Incorporated. She's worked in Southfield, Michigan at now you spoke in the D. I know I got my Detroit people watching me. WWJ and WJOI in Southfield, Michigan. And then she was also vice president of development market relations for Chicago Urban League. I met Dr. Albright about 15 years ago as a volunteer for Ray of Hope Foundation. And that is a not-for-profit that is dear to her heart and to mine, where we really focus on young girls and women and helping them be the best that they can be. So with all that said, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you both. Reading all that really takes me. It's like I'm sitting there, who is she talking about? It's a pleasure and a privilege. And let me just say that I feel honored, and I celebrate the two of you for doing what you're doing, for reaching out to women and doing the business of helping women to understand business and to get in a home. Mm-hmm. I think that's remarkable.
Well, I saw a sermon, and actually it was from a leader's church, and it was talking about tell your stories. And I know that is definitely a principle that you live by. I also want to throw in there that you did a book called They Matter, and that book is about the stories of people's lives who have been so important and dear to you. So, I mean, with you being a mentor of mine as well, all of this just resonates with me, and I just feel like it's coming full circle. So, I'm just happy to have you here.
I'm so glad, and you're going to write the book.
I know. I'll write your book. I'll write your story.
Write the book because I will not be writing.
I will write your story because I think it's fascinating.
It's an amazing story.
It is an amazing story. But today we're here to talk about just living in grace every day. And I tell a joke about when I first met you. I called my mom and said, I ain't never met black folks like this. This woman is something else. She just, everybody, open arms, And I love that about you. So just give me a little bit of what does grace mean to you?
My grace actually comes from the fact that first of all, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
And I was raised a Christian. And I believe as I have journeyed through this journey that has not been my journey. And let me just say, this was not Alvenia's planned journey, but God's journey for my life. Mm-hmm. And his grace has carried me through every step of that journey. And as we talk about those places I've been and I reflect on the countries I visited and the people who were gracious to me and welcoming, I cannot even begin to think that without God's grace that I would have survived or be sitting here to talk to you. And then what you learn from God's grace is that he gives us what he wants us to give to others. Yes. He gives us opportunity. He gives us the vision But he also gives us free will to accept.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we then have to, what he gives us, we have to accept it or not and make the best of it. So my life has been an intertwining of grace, giving grace, accepting grace, being graceful, and being so, so grateful. So I think it's a combination of all of that, if that makes sense.
It does. It
That makes
does.
perfect sense.
So when you talk about too your travels, right? You've traveled all over the world, which is
Yeah.
another phenomenal story. And can you talk about the treatment of women that you saw when you were around the world?
Yeah, and I call that God's setup for me. He set me up when I went to the different countries. And at that time, I was the person, the woman, the Black, generally teaching all male classes in China, in Japan, in all of these other countries in Africa. What I also learned and saw was the treatment of women, girls, and how in every one of our countries, women, well, a lot of them were not allowed to get an education.
Mm-hmm.
They were not given the privilege of being educated. Number two, they were property. So they were given back and forth to people who were not gracious to them. In certain countries, India and China, they were like property ownership for men to own and do with what they willed.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that, oh my goodness, it made you grateful
Mm-hmm.
for what we considered, I consider some of our challenges and the challenges today to be horrific. However, only when you've traveled and you can see what other women are going through,
Right.
what our girls are going to have to face, what our children are going to have to face, only then can you realize and accept the fact that we are so much better off. And whatever that hard thing is that we have tried and we are attempting to overcome, it's nothing compared to what other women
have gone through.
are going through today.
Yes.
So I find that I have become exposed, and exposure is a gift
It
from
is a
God.
gift.
It is.
Exposure, and I cannot help but say to women, you need to travel, you need to be exposed to other places other than that which you're familiar with. And just only then will you appreciate the fact that women globally are women.
Mhm.
We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We have the same challenges.
Mhm.
And then you will have that grace enough to be supportive of women, wherever
Right.
you are,
Mhm.
because that's where it comes from, understanding that we're all in the same boat.
Yes. Yes.
So you see that internationally, right? And you come home and you see very similar things. I mean, maybe not to the degree of some of the treatment in other countries, but definitely.
Things
Yeah.
are, yeah.
What I think happened to me is I came home with this fire in my belly, so to speak, because I knew I was set up to do something.
Mhm.
So I wrote this proposal. And at that time, the head of American Express's foundation, she and I had grown to be good colleagues and friends. I said, I've got a program that you got to do because American Express has all the resources to
Mhm.
do it. We own the banks, we have the healthcare systems, we can bring women here, they can get healthy, we can send them to the institutions. This is what you need to do, and I've written it for you. And she said, oh, Alvenia, I think this is fantastic. You can start this because this can be American Express's next push. I said, oh, no, I'm giving it to you, the foundation, because the foundation needs to do it. And of course, she said, no, you have the vision.
Mm-hmm.
It was given to you.
Mhm.
So I said, I'm going to leave this with you because I'm not staying. I can't stay here because I don't think I'm supposed to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I did not know I was going to be leaving American Express,
Uh-huh.
but everything else had been evolving like that. I knew I wasn't going to stay there long term, but it was perfect for them. It was a company that could touch every aspect of the world and had all the resources that these women were lacking. So I left it with them.
And then but you didn't stop, right?
I didn't stop.
You started your own.
I came home.
Come on.
And they offered me a position. Of course, they offered me a position to stay and start my own division.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, and the blessing of travel was a gift,
Mhm.
and it was a gift on American Express's time and dime.
Mhm.
Yes.
So that was a gift.
Mhm.
But I also knew that I had something else in mind. And when they offered me the opportunity to start a division and train people, they didn't quite know what I did or how I did what I did,
Mhm.
but they knew that you can train people to do and get these numbers. So you can have a team of 25, et cetera, et cetera. I really contemplated, I couldn't figure it out, but I knew I couldn't train people to be me.
Right.
They had not had the exposure, the
Mhm.
experience, the foundation of believing in a God. I couldn't take credit or allow them to use my credibility
Mhm.
to open doors. And 25 people who, and I could have picked from all the divisions,
Okay.
did not happen. I just didn't think I could do that because I knew people had to have and bring their own experiences, their own beliefs. And I truly believe that God has given all of us these special gifts.
Yes.
Now, I'm still finding mine. And I tell my students every day, don't compare yourselves to others.
Oh gosh.
You have to look deep and follow your own. So therefore, at that time, I was going to follow. And I had talked to people about, Alvin, you're starting your own business. You have a way of dealing with leaders that others can't do it. And you've done it. And so I started Alvenia Rhea Albright and Associates almost 25 years ago.
Almost 25. And that comes too from the relationships that you built. That's why you couldn't
Absolutely.
teach it, because
Mhm.
if
Absolutely.
people have a
Genuine.
certain way of communicating the relationship with you and them,
That's
right? And so to teach, you can't teach people how to relate to people.
Mm-mm.
No.
You cannot. It's either something that you can do or you build for yourself.
And the other thing is you cannot transfer relationships.
You cannot.
I know that I have relationships with people, and I tell my students this. You need to build relationships and build them based upon you.
Mhm.
You cannot transfer. And although you might like a person and you think that person would benefit, that might be kindness, but it isn't that way. You cannot transfer relationships. So I've been blessed with these relationships. Well, see, I know that all the people in my life, God has sent them to me.
Mhm.
But I can say that to you after years of being in this.
Right.
Right.
I wasn't
Right.
aware when I was your age. I wasn't aware, but I knew that everywhere I went by myself, He sent me family.
Mhm.
He sent me people
Mhm.
to surround me with love and
Yes.
to keep telling me, go ahead, push it. And then I was in a time when I was like the first female on almost every staff, the
Mhm.
first Black on most of my corporate staffs. So I knew from my teachers and from my parents that every door I entered, I was not just there for Alvenia.
Right.
I was there taking a whole race with me. And if I did not succeed,
Mhm.
the next opportunity would never happen.
Right.
So I knew nothing that I did was about me. It was about my purpose.
That
And-
is so powerful. I resonate with you on I'm not being a Chicago native. And I actually left Michigan when I graduated, well, my senior year in college, and transferred to California, and then was transferred to Illinois, and I've been here ever since. But as you speak about relationships, I also was able to be planted in communities where I still have contacts and people that are like family to me,
Yes.
that would look out for me, my kids, whatnot.
Mhm.
But I think that ties to what you mentioned is being the discernment of it.
That's
Because
that
I
grace.
also, yes,
That's that
I
grace.
also knew that I didn't have to be in contact and in communication with everybody. I was
Right.
very
That's true.
select about who was around me, and people can sometimes sense from you of who you are, what you will and won't do, and that
Absolutely.
attracts. So I think what you said is so true as far as relationships and with yourself. You attract different things based on where you are and what you're
Absolutely.
doing. So for me, same thing. Being a Christian, that matters, and I laugh because when I was moving, they couldn't believe I was moving off. You don't know anybody in California, and I remember because my mom moved to Michigan. She's originally from Alabama, and I'm like, it's the same thing you did, same thing that my aunt did. Like, what's the big deal? And I remember we were being in church one Sunday, and the pastor was, I don't remember what scripture he was preaching on, but the title was, one of the things he said was, the same God that keeps you here will keep you there.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to move. And that just resonated with me. And I was like, yep, I'm supposed to go.
Supposed to go.
That
I'm
was your
supposed to,
confirmation.
that was a
That's-
confirmation. So I think that it's so powerful that you let your light shine, and it attracts others, and telling your story. Because I was working in the automotive industry, I was
Mhm.
it was mostly a male based things. Have you had an encounter where you were the only woman, you see someone else come aboard, and then you're excited because you're like, oh, another woman. So you want to be like, I don't want you to, fall through the pitfalls or the things I want you to know. But they're really not receptive to that.
Well, two things.
Okay.
Let me say this before I forget.
Mhm.
My mother's from Alabama too.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, we'll have another
Yes, we
conversation about
will.
that. But I unfortunately was that one.
Mhm.
And in all the professions, as I reflected on as you were reading, except for like the Urban League, I was that one and first female.
Okay.
However, I didn't let it happen without me bringing those females on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I worked with American Express and we were teaching women and doing leadership development around the country and around the world, I was supported by two powerful young Black women.
Okay.
Okay.
And one of them, I won't say their names, but one of them had been with the company for like almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a secretary. And when I came, she had not seen a me.
Yes.
And she was so excited that I was there. So she began to just help me
Mm-hmm.
and be there and be supportive of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to talk to her. And of course, she gave me so much information because she'd been with the company so long. She not only taught me about how to do the finance reports and stuff, but she began to work with me because at that time I hadn't hired anyone. Interestingly enough, I went to her boss and said, I really want for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that she's been helping me and she's been with you for almost 20 years. And yeah, she's an excellent executive assistant. I said, well, I'm going to hire her as a deputy director.
Mhm.
He said, oh, really? I said, mm-hmm. So, of course, no, we don't do that.
Mhm.
So I finally went and I said, I'm going to hire you. I've talked to your boss and he says, great, but I'm going to hire you as my deputy director. She said, oh, they don't do that. That's all right. I said, well, they don't do it because I haven't been here before. So, of course, I hired her as my
Mhm.
deputy director. We hired another young lady who was in another division, and she and they and we went on the
Yes.
road around this country. And we also went to some of the other countries. Most of the countries I went to, I was by myself. But they went with me. They taught me what I did not know.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they were learning from me about how to deal with all kinds of people because we brought that diverse market into American Express.
Okay.
Now, needless to say, these people were still spending, we used to say, the numbers off of their American Express cards. But I don't think they understood the value of having a relationship where they could get something for it.
Yes.
So we began to go and help to sponsor different organizations. We sponsored one of the first LGBT conferences out west.
Mm-hmm.
And when they called to ask us to go, I said, absolutely, we'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so excited.
Mhm.
And of course, that has been a community that has never been anything but gracious and good to me.
Mhm.
All of my communities that we went into were gracious and good to us. So if you plant seeds of grace,
Mhm.
grace will be given back
It will.
It will.
because you are there because of grace
Mhm.
and God's graces. And He is using you. Wherever He puts you,
Mhm.
He's using you. You just have to be open to receive His direction.
Yes.
And I wasn't always there.
Mhm.
I wasn't always there. And I think I must say to you that my biggest challenge, and I was in Nairobi, Kenya, doing an international women's conference, and my mom passed.
Mhm.
That was a huge pain in my heart. And of course, I went into a real terrible place. It took me 4.5 years to overcome that.
Wow.
But I was battling with Satan. I was battling with God, and He just sat there and let me work through it. And I cannot begin to tell you the psychological and the physical turmoil that I went through.
Mhm.
But He was patient with me. He was patient, and He let me get through. And I was up there because I really wanted to just not be here. But you learn those lessons, and talk about God's grace. He allowed me that, and He allowed me to be in that pain. And when you're in pain of departure or pain of transition of others and people that you love, there you get strength from going through the pain.
Mm.
He is strengthening you for the next part of your journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is strengthening you because you have to know what to do, because we truly are in a painful time.
Mhm.
But clearly, I don't think there's anything that can make me not remember. It wasn't that bad. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. You go through, and He strengthens you for your journey.
Yes.
So, not to say that I want either of you to go through what I've done, the kinds of things that I've done.
And I talked about in probably a previous episode, you were one of the ones who taught me too, that you have to sit in things.
Mhm.
You have to feel what you feel. You have to let it come through you. A lot of times we're trying to, folks is medicating themselves and doing all of that
Yes.
things, trying not to feel something. You have to feel what you feel.
Mhm.
That is so awesome, because the message this morning from my church was about sitting in the pain,
Mm-hmm.
sitting in this situation,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that this too shall pass.
Yes, you shall
Mhm.
say.
Mhm.
Because you only get the power of the grace when you sit in it and go through it.
Mhm.
So therein lies our situation today, but therein lies, as I reflect, all of the times and all of the pain and all of the brokenness that I physically have gone through. It was purpose.
So you started your own consulting firm, and then you couldn't let go about the women. So you said, I'm gonna start a non-for-profit. In order to do that, I'm gonna sell some Mary Kay to get some money to start the non-for-profit. So I've let you tell a little bit of that journey too.
And that is so true, because I decided, and God kept slapping me, because after I left American Express and left the plan there, I think He wanted me to know it wasn't for American Express, Dummy. It was for you. It was for you.
Right.
So finally, I came home off the road, and I used to come home because I'd be gone so much, but I would have open house.
Mhm.
So this particular year, I came home and I said, I'm going to start a foundation. And okay. So, okay. And what I then did was called about 8 of it. Because if you don't know about Mary Kay is a really good company for women, and you build a team.
Mhm.
Well, Alvenia went and she took her team in. I just picked women who I knew supported me and would make the money and would, do well on my team. And they said, oh, okay, Alvenia, we'll do this. And we did. And, you work toward earning this car, and we earned our car in about 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, but we didn't need cars.
Right.
So
Right.
we took the money. And the money was for Rhea Pope.
Oh, wow.
And so we began, and then I would have people at my house, and I would just invite them in. It was like a holiday open house. And then I would tell them, I'm starting this foundation. I have started this foundation. Wouldn't charge them anything. I would bake all my mother's recipes of desserts. And then I would make this big pot of bean soup and serve it with cornbread to cushion the sugar. And it just began to grow. People knew, and they came. It's amazing, because when I look back on that table full of
Mhm.
my mother's desserts.
Mhm.
I would come home at Thanksgiving, and that week I would bake all those desserts because my event at that time was the first
Week of
weekend of December.
Okay.
Mhm.
And here I people loved it. People were eating, and then the bean soup came and the cornbread came because people need to cushion their stomachs, and they began to come. I didn't charge anybody. It was like a free fall. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to start a foundation for girls and women because we know we need to take care of girls. And of course, I was talking about all girls.
Mhm.
Novel idea because typically, and as I was told then, Alvenia, we need to take care of our Black girls, and we do.
We do.
And we do. I saw, and God let me see, all girls
Right.
are in the same boat.
Yes.
All women and He wants us to come together.
Yeah.
He wants us to support and show grace.
Mhm.
He wants us to do that. I am so much aware of that by just doing what we do with the foundation. Because when we visit people in need, or girls who have been trafficked or homeless, abused, they come in colors, all
Yes, they do.
colors,
It's not-
all
yeah.
colors. So thank you, God, for the insight. So that's what we push forward on. And I think any opportunity I have to tell women that we have got to take the walls down and not only support each other, but uplift each other.
Uplift. Yes.
That's our job. That's our responsibility because we have been uplifted.
Right. Yes.
And God has given us the sensitivity and the ability to think past what we see, which is divisiveness and stepping on people. We don't do that. No, you've got to be better than that.
That's true.
We've got to be better than that. And so we are. And so we are. But the
So-
foundation started.
And it started in her home. So
Yes.
that was one of the, when I met her, I went to one of the, in
Open
December,
houses.
open houses.
Mhm.
People everywhere. She has a beautiful home and people were everywhere. And I'm just looking at people and just like, oh my goodness, I just never seen anything like this, but okay. And I actually became became a volunteer. And then I got on the board. And I did make a suggestion. I'm like, we need to take this out of the home because it had grown so much.
Mhm.
And so we did a open house still at your
Mhm.
church.
Yes. We moved it out of the home.
Yes.
Because I think the last time we had it at the house, and we used the whole house. The basement was the silent auction, which was started by my Japanese and Chinese girlfriends out of California
Okay.
who came to my house and spent time. We would stay up all night setting up the stuff downstairs. And then the kids were young people from my church who knew about me. They would come. I get them to come and volunteer, running the coats upstairs
Okay.
and greeting the people at the door. So we had it organized. That's why she was amazed. And we grew out of the house. And so we then took it to my church. We were there just beginning. That was a new church then.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And we did
And
that.
so we had our first one out of the house there. And we still had that space filled
Field.
with people. And I served cornbread and soup,
soup
didn't I?
at there,
At the church.
yes.
I did. It was like people are going to have, and they'll still be welcomed the same way. We had a program. And we kept growing and kept changing and growing. And I know that when I'm gone, I want it to be whatever it can be, but it won't be the same because the needs will be greater. It will grow even bigger. And it will be all kinds of people in it. Now, mind you, I want you to know that when we started our first board, I made sure it was a diverse board.
Smart.
The sisters from every culture were there, giving their time and money. And we're working still to make that back. A lot of them got jobs and were transferred to different cities. But it has always been a passion of mine to show that women can support each other.
Yes.
Women can do for each other. And we need to teach the next generation
Mhm.
We do.
that's
Pass it on.
the survival.
Yes.
That is their survival. We have to come together and we have to keep supporting women and girls.
And I think too, because we are a small working board, right? We supported Child Serve, which is an
yes.
organization,
The state
a
organization.
state-run organization. We've supported an organization called Moose Heart
For 10 years.
for 10 years, which is in actually Moose Heart, the Batavia area. These are young girls. They have girls and boys, but they're basically like awards of the state, even though they have interaction with their parents.
Oh, yeah. The ones at Child Serve truly are
Awards of the state.
Okay.
That is true.
Because they are
Yes.
in homes and they have had some interaction with the law, and
Mhm.
they're from all over, but they happen to have their infraction with the law in Illinois.
Okay.
So, and they had boys' homes too.
Mhm.
They had
Right.
boys and girls' homes. And it was so funny because the reason we got to the Downers home is the guy who was doing my the volunteer background checks.
Mhm.
He was from Michigan and he became a friend and he said, I'll do your background checks. And so he said, Alvenia, there's a house down the street from where my office is, and there's a whole lot of strange women in there. You need to come down here and adopt these women.
So that's how we.
And that's how we got to that home in Downers Grove.
Wow.
It was amazing because anywhere you could look, and even today,
Mhm.
there are women and girls in need, you know.
Yes.
But we started,
We
yeah,
started there.
people start saying, Alvenia, there's some people over here, you need to get over here. You need to work with over here.
And so now we have evolved, Ray of Hope has evolved to a banquet where we have over about 220 to 250 guests yearly for our annual banquet. And it is just,
Spectacular.
it's spectacular. And we've added scholarships
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
because we just saw a need in that arena as well and giving back to young people.
But let me stop you. Now, we are at these huge places. She has played a major role. And she's not going to say it, I'm going to say it.
Okay.
I'm about authenticity and truth.
I
Because
love it.
when I first got her in there, I said, oh, I'm just going to volunteer. I said, no, you're going to be, no, I can't. Yes, you can. And then Tommy Johnson, who has since moved away as well, was the person who, Al, we need to start doing scholarships. Okay. And so we began our scholarships.
Mhm.
And we have built that up. We've given over 80,000, right? 88,000 in scholarships to kids. And we do it according to a scholarship committee. I have nothing to do with it. There's a committee for that. But the blessing is that this growth didn't happen just with me, of course.
Right.
People who came in bought into the mission and bought into the need.
Mhm.
And so, but when I got Monique, I also got the whole family. So, and see, that's what, when God sends you what you need,
Mhm.
he
Right.
sends it to you.
Yes, he
Yes.
Because
does.
Christopher
Oh.
I'm his second mommy.
Amazing.
He's gonna love this episode.
He is mine. And he came, oh, can I share when you first brought
Yes, you
Christopher to
can.
me?
You can.
Christopher had not met me, and Monique was telling me about her son who was very talented, and I have a piano at the house. And we were having one of our sessions at the house, and I said, well, let Christopher come. She said, I'll ask him to come. He'll come and play. So Christopher came, and Christopher, first of all, he sat at the piano. This piano needs tuning. And it did, because I don't play. I just love my piano. It's an antique, but and so I said, okay, the next time you come, next time, okay. He says, but I tried to get it tuned before the day of our event, and then Christopher played some original music. And that was the first time he met me, and he was kind of standoffish, but now he's my number one son. And he loves him some Miss
And he
Family.
loved her from the beginning, because after that first meeting, when we walked outside, he said, I think she's smitten with me. I said, what? What is that?
And I was. He was so gracious, and he willingly came. He was just a sophomore in high school.
He was a sophomore in high school.
He was
Yes,
just a
he was.
sophomore.
He was 15
And
years
he
old.
has not missed a Ray of Hope function. He wanted to be a part of it.
Mhm.
And we really have had chances to talk. And he would ask me questions about, now, who are you doing this with? And who are these people? And what was so great is that Christopher knew that the girls we talked about and the girls we were serving didn't have a home. Like
Mhm.
where he,
Mhm.
didn't have what, and so it was so great that but he's very bright and very inquisitive. Now, who are you doing this for? Like, but it was awesome.
But
And so,
it's back to your thing of exposure.
Yes.
yeah, that's
See,
very
a
true.
lot of these young people know, they have the life. I mean, we give them everything, God help us, but they're not wanting for anything. Let me say
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And so for him to see us working to help other people,
That is-
he never knew that people
That was
just didn't
neat.
live at home with their moms and dads.
Right.
What are you talking about?
And have all these meals
have
every
all
day,
these-
all their
right.
needs met.
Right. And so if you're
Without
not
you.
exposed to that, you don't realize it.
And serving.
And serving.
Because if that's the thing, that it's that you are put here to serve.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And in different capacities,
Absolutely.
in different ways to serve. But if you don't expose children to that, they don't know that
They don't
either.
know.
This obviously is so important because every day I teach international students
Mhm.
at Lewis University. I'm giving you a clue there. But my students I really adore. Number one is because they are so happy to see me in that space.
Mhm.
And when I say to them, I've been to your country, it is almost an immediate affinity.
Mhm.
And being of Black, female, and been to your country and can teach at a college, they know a little bit more about our history than we do, and than our children do.
Mhm.
But more importantly, I tell them every day that do not allow anyone to tell you what you cannot do.
Oh, that's so true.
And I take the first 2 weeks of every semester and I tell them, you have to teach me how to say your name appropriately.
Mhm.
And they said, really? Yes. That's my lesson for the first 2 weeks, because I want to call you by name. And I want you to, that's respect.
Yes.
And I tell them, don't let anyone disrespect you or take your identity or your legacy. Your parents named you for purpose.
Absolutely.
So you teach people to call you by
Mhm.
name. But there's a lesson that I learned so much from them. And when we have other kids who are from our community in the class, they're amazed. They are amazed because what they don't know is that that's why these people want to come here. And the kids can talk freely about it. You have so many freedoms that you just take it for granted.
Yes.
You have so much here. You can go out and work and not be fearful of the police unless you've done something wrong. You can make those decisions yourself.
Mhm.
It is so important. So I think that God put me in these schools for purpose, of course. But to have these students, they just don't know how much I'm learning from them about the generation and their, and their cultures,
Right.
But they teach me all kinds of new stuff. And this is what we're doing with this. And so, of course, in my class, I don't allow them to use their tools. I tell them that I want you to understand that someone wrote the stuff that you're giving permission to take over your brain, because every time you hit a button, as opposed to going to look up something, you are not using your brain.
Mhm.
Someone wrote that,
Mhm.
and you trust them. You don't even go and check it across 2 or 3.
Right.
Yes.
You just take the first one. So I allow them to think about that, and I only allow them to use only one resource when they're giving their speeches from online. I tell them, I go buy books for my kids.
Mhm.
I go buy books on their subject matter and give them books. And I take my magazines in. I want them to touch paper.
It's becoming a lost art.
It's a lost.
They
look,
think
writing,
Dr.
it's all
Albright
in
is
there.
just insane, of course.
Yes.
But I want them to know that you can't rely on this. And then in my class, I don't allow them to use it, but on any given day, the technology in the classroom, which we do have to use, it doesn't work. I said, so if you're giving a speech and that doesn't work, you have to create that vision for this
For
audience,
this audience.
and your brain can do it, and so can your voice.
That's so.
So you have to use your own power. You have power. You have an ability. You are smart. You will not be in my class if you weren't smart. So get with it. And I know they think I'm crazy sometimes, but most of them appreciate me.
They will, and if they don't now, they will look back.
They
and
will
learn
look
too.
back
They
on it
will.
and see
Mhm.
it.
They
Yeah.
will.
And I think it's important too to see people who look like you
Oh,
when you're coming up in that education
yes.
time. It's
Absolutely.
it does so much for your spirit, for your willingness to learn, to
Mhm.
want to learn.
Mhm.
I being in that role, I just think it's phenomenal.
Yes.
God sent me there because clearly it wasn't my idea. But I do believe clearly that was on my path
Mhm.
and that was purposeful. And I do believe that these students show so much appreciation. And I think teachers would love to feel like, wow, I'm making a difference.
Mhm.
Now, there are clearly some students who come to me and say, oh, no, she's too hard. I can't do that. She wants you to get all A's. I tell them the first day, I expect all of you to get A's. And not only are you in my class because you're smart, you're here on scholarship, but most importantly, you got me. And I'm going to be pushing and pulling. And you will earn it. I don't give grades.
Right.
You will earn it. And a lot of them say, oh, we got to get out of this class.
I look like we get ready to work hard.
Yeah,
There's a lot going on in here.
Yeah, this one is
This
not
is-
the
this
right one.
This is not the right one. I didn't come here
Look,
for all of this.
yeah, I
now.
came here
This
to
is
go play my
this is my
soccer.
thought, and do this right. You doing a little too much.
But I think I love them and I appreciate their lives, and I infuse motivation into them. And I say that because they are going through really hard times right now. And I tell them, remember, you're going to learn from the pain.
Yeah.
And if this happens again, you will have already had the experience.
Mhm.
So
you
you'll know
how
what to do.
ready.
Know what
You
to
know
do
how
next.
to do it. So don't be discouraged. And don't let anybody tell you who you are and what you don't have in you.
Mhm.
So in all of that, can I dare say what's next? What's next?
You know,
Oh my goodness.
God hasn't delivered that to me yet, but He will.
It will.
He will. He will. I am very open, but I do know all of this has nothing to do with me. It was God's plan for this life, and I'm not confused by that. I did not know the plan,
Mhm.
but the bottom line for me, and I must say this, and I tell my students, get your education. We had teachers who told us that. Get your education. They won't like you because of what you look like, but they can't take anything from your brain.
So true.
And so the message is so unfortunate, but it's the same message today.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. It hasn't
Mhm.
changed.
And I would hate to think, and as I reflect back, I've come so far and yet we're still right here.
Same. Yes.
And it's very painful. But I'm here to deliver the message, but I hate to think that we have gone backwards faster than we went forward.
Yeah.
But we have been through it before. We've had the pain
And
before.
this too, like
And
you
we-
said,
and
this
this
too
too shall pass.
It shall
Yes.
pass.
So we just have to teach our children and talk to our young people and let them know, oh, you're going to be fine.
Mhm.
And you will grow from having to save money as opposed to spend it,
Absolutely.
getting out of debt as opposed to just charging everything.
Right.
You will learn how to do this. And from this learning, you will do better on the next thing because I think it's a repetitive cycle.
It is.
Unfortunately,
Mhm.
it does.
And if we don't learn from the lessons, we just repeat them again.
Yeah,
make
and
more mistakes.
that's kind of sad and unfortunate,
Yeah.
but it is.
Well, I have just loved having you here today.
Yes.
And if you ever get an opportunity to talk with Dr. Albright, I suggest you sit down and do it because you truly are a living legacy. I've learned so much from you. Grace, I've learned about grace from you as well. Because as we talked about, I wasn't walking in grace, living that corporate life. I just wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. When you grow up fighting and trying to get to the next thing, you just trying to do. But when you know better, you do better.
Yes.
Yeah. And let me just say, the fight isn't over.
Oh no.
What's
No.
important is that you learn how to fight.
We're learning how to
Oh,
fight.
right.
That's
Yes.
the difference.
You're learning
Absolutely.
how to fight.
That's
And so
the difference.
that gives you the power over the enemy.
the other of the enemy.
It gives you the
Exactly.
power over the enemy. So
It takes time to learn that.
it
Mhm.
does.
It's
I tell you,
it's
I'm not as young as you guys are. So
it takes time to
Yes,
learn that.
it is.
And that's why I said, as
You
you
do.
learn and know better, you do better.
Mhm.
Because
You
it's
do.
a journey. It's truly
It
a
is.
journey.
But you learn from every one of those levels, and I wasn't always, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we don't start out like that.
No, it's
Yeah,
evolved.
I was a fighter
Yeah.
with some language I could not say.
Yeah. I've been there. So,
No.
well,
Yes, thank you so much for joining us and sharing just a snippet of all of the things you've done over the time. You're such and I hope that her spirit comes through on this episode, because since Monique introduced me to you, it's just like hooray. So I appreciate all that you pour into her and you pour into us, and support is always there. So thank you.
Well, I just love it that you guys invited me.
of course.
Yes.
I feel honored, but it also makes me feel so good to know young people who are moving forward in a good direction.
Hmm.
And what you're doing here is so critical. Women need to know their power. Women need to know that they can own themselves and their situations.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
And I think we need to keep telling them that
Mhm.
and keep pushing and going forward. And this is a season of difficulty, but you learn from every difficult
Yes, you
season.
do.
You have to learn, and you guys will be learning.
Absolutely.
But what you learn, you will then deliver.
Deliver.
Yes.
You will deliver. And I will stop talking, I'm sure.
No, I was gonna say that's why you need to like, follow, and subscribe to all of
Yes.
our. Where are we, Alita? I always have to ask her.
It's Grace Over Grit and Growth. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So listen to this and share it with others so they can be as blessed as you will be.
Yeah, and I just love this episode because she keeps calling me young. So
I know, right?
I know, right? Girl, please. So yeah, okay. So well, we thank you so much for joining us.